My name is Caleb Rowe, and I swear what I'm about to tell you is true. I've never spoken about it to anyone, not to my family, not to the cops, not even to myself out loud. But the memory won't leave me. I see it in the oil stains on my walls. I hear it every time my microwave hums, and every time I close my eyes I smell it. That burned, wet, choking smell of rotting meat mixed with hot grease. It started when I took the night shift at a KFC located on the outskirts of Dalton, Georgia. Not the new one near the mall, the old one near the woods, the one people stopped going to because the drive-through speaker was always broken and the lights flickered even during the day. But I needed money. Rent was due. My girlfriend had left. I wasn't picky. It was just supposed to be a job. Just 6 weeks. That's all I signed up for. The first couple nights were uneventful. Long, quiet hours mopping floors, cleaning fryers, restocking the sauce station. No customers past 11 p.m. Just me and that awful buzzing from the neon sign outside. I remember the silence. It was so deep it almost pressed against my ears, like the building was holding its breath. Then, on my fourth night, the back freezer started knocking. I was halfway through wiping the counter when I heard it. A soft, steady thump, like someone was gently rapping their knuckles from inside the walk-in freezer. I froze. It didn't stop. Just knock, knock, knock. In perfect rhythm. I opened the freezer. Nothing. Just shelves of frozen chicken, boxes of biscuits, and a layer of frost on the floor. I figured it might have been pipes contracting. I shut the door and went back to cleaning. The next night it happened again. Same knocking, same rhythm, only louder. This time when I opened the freezer door, the boxes had shifted. You have to understand, these boxes were stacked perfectly, top to bottom, packed by corporate order. Not even the air could move them. But now, they were toppled over, scattered, like something had crawled through them. Still, I told myself it was just cold air expansion. I didn't want to think about anything else. Then came the voice. At around 2:11 a.m., I was taking out the trash. The alley behind the store was always pitch black, even with the motion lights, just tall fences and wet pavement. I was dragging the last bag toward the dumpster when I heard it. A soft whisper. Don't go. I spun around. No one. The alley was empty. The light overhead flickered violently and then popped, showering sparks onto the ground. For a second, I stood there in total darkness. And then I heard it again. Don't go. Only this time it was closer, right behind me. Hot breath tickled my neck. I turned so fast I dropped the bag. Still nothing. But the dumpster lid was open, and the grease trap next to it was oozing. Thick, black, sludgy oil, bubbling like it was boiling even though it hadn't been used in hours. The smell was unbearable, like old meat, bile, and burned plastic. I went back inside, shaking, tried to laugh it off. I didn't sleep at all that day. On my 6th night, the lights inside started misbehaving. They flickered at first, then began to pulse, on and off like a heartbeat. Every time they went off, I saw something in the dark. Not directly, just there. A shape, slumped, bent, moving wrong. I stood in the center of the kitchen, staring into the darkness beyond the fryers, and as the light flicked on and off, I could see it. First at the edge of the counter, then near the drink machine, then inches from me. And when the light came on fully, it was gone. But the counter was dripping with grease thick as blood, and there was a single, bare, oily footprint pressed into the tile near my shoes. I should have run. I should have quit. But I stayed. I don't even know why. Maybe because some places don't let you leave once they've seen you. The final night, my 7th, I arrived just before midnight. The manager, Lisa, had left early. Her hands were trembling. She wouldn't even look at me. She said, "Lock up when you're done, don't go into the freezer." She didn't wait for my answer. The freezer door was wide open. Inside, the walls were lined with meat, but not chicken. hunks of flesh, stitched together, draped across the shelves like decorations. And in the center, a body. Not quite human, not quite animal. Something in between, covered in feathers, but too long, too stretched. Its beak was shattered, twisted into a scream, and one of its eyes, cloudy and yellow, was open, staring right at me. I slammed the door and ran to the office. The cameras were all off, displaying static, all except one. Camera 3, the fryer station. On it I saw a figure, not a person, a thing. Greasy skin, like it had bathed in oil. Its mouth was a torn, gaping hole, stretching from ear to ear, and its hands, long, dripping fingers, dragged behind it like noodles. It was staring at the fryer. Then it looked up, right into the camera, right at me. The screen went black. Then the fryer turned on by itself. Oil bubbled and hissed violently. A single human hand rose from inside it, clawing at the air, skin bubbling and peeling off as it reached over the fryer edge and thudded to the floor. I screamed, ran for the front door. It wouldn't open. Not locked, just wouldn't move, like it had fused to the wall. Behind me I heard the wet slap of feet against the tile. Closer, closer. I turned. It was standing at the edge of the counter, mouth wide open. It didn't move. It just opened its arms, like it wanted a hug. And then it whispered, "Time to clock out." I blacked out. When I woke, I was lying in the parking lot, covered in grease. My name tag melted into my shirt. No burns, no wounds. But my shoes were filled with fryer oil, and my hands smelled like death. The store was empty, closed permanently, lights off, like it had never been open. Corporate said they'd never hired me, said no KFC existed at that location. But I still have the pay stubs, still have the scar on my chest, a faint circle right over my heart, like someone branded me with the bottom of a bucket. And sometimes at night I smell the oil again, and I hear it, knock, knock, from my closet, from under my bed, from inside the walls. If you ever find yourself alone, working late at a fast food joint, especially one that smells wrong, don't ignore the grease. Don't answer the knocking. And whatever you do, don't stay for the midnight shift. I used to work the graveyard shift at a KFC just off Route 17 in a small town in Kentucky that barely had its name on the map. It was one of those standalone buildings, red roof, faded sign, parking lot full of cracked asphalt and broken glass. We stayed open until midnight, but my shift didn't end until 2 a.m., when cleanup was done and the last fryer cooled. Most nights were quiet. The drive-thru might get a late trucker or a stoned teenager with the munchies. Nothing serious. Just me, the hum of fluorescent lights, the greasy smell of fryer oil, and the occasional squeak of rats behind the walls. But I swear to you, on everything I love, that something started happening in that place that twisted my soul into knots I can't undo. It started with the freezer door. That heavy steel walk-in at the back of the kitchen had a tendency to creak open an inch or two, even after you swore you'd slammed it. It didn't have a latch problem. Our manager, Doug, had checked it a dozen times. But still, sometimes you'd come around the corner and see it just barely ajar, a whisper of frost leaking from the crack. I'd close it, maybe swear a little, and go back to wiping down trays or sweeping the tile. Then one night I found the freezer light on. It wasn't just open a crack this time. It was wide open, and the overhead bulb inside, one of those blue-tinged LED ones, was flickering like crazy. I stood there for a second, staring into the frozen void, half expecting to see Doug grabbing more tenders or something. But it was empty. I stepped closer, holding my breath against the sudden chill. That's when I saw the footprints. Not shoe prints, bare feet. And not recent either. These looked like they'd been there a while, frozen into the floor, the ridges and toes outlined in frost. I followed them with my eyes. They didn't lead out. They led in, deep into the back, toward the racks of frozen chicken and pre-made biscuits. I didn't go in. I slammed the door shut, flipped the bolt, and told myself it was a prank, Doug trying to freak me out. But the look on his face the next morning when I told him, that wasn't a man laughing. That was a man who knew something. That night I decided to keep a log, just little notes scribbled in my order pad. October 3rd, 1:37 a.m. Freezer open again. Light flickering. Footprints gone. October 5th, 2:10 a.m. Drive-through headset picked up static, then what sounded like crying. Nobody at the window. October 7th, 1:00 a.m. All fryers turned off. Came back from taking trash out. One fryer was boiling again, no one else here. Things escalated after that. One night I was mopping near the soda fountain when I heard someone whisper my name. Not over the headset, inside the kitchen. A dry, cracked voice, like someone who hadn't had water in years. Matt. I froze. My name sounded wrong coming from that voice. I turned, expecting to see Doug or maybe Tina from the earlier shift, but the place was empty. Then the ice machine exploded. Not literally, but it screeched. A deep mechanical howl that echoed off the tile and made my ears ring. Ice dumped all over the floor, as if the machine had vomited it out. And in the center of it, lying perfectly still, was a piece of old yellowed chicken bone, burnt black on one end. I didn't clean it up. I just left. I told Doug I needed a break. He gave me a weird look like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. The final night was October 13th, Friday. I almost didn't come in, but rent was due and I couldn't afford to lose the job. I arrived around 7 p.m. to find the place deserted. No customers, no Doug, no Tina, just the open sign humming in the window, flickering like it always did. I went to the back to grab gloves and heard something wet slap onto the floor. It was a chicken wing, not breaded, raw, veins still pink, feathers still stuck to parts of the skin. I looked up. The ceiling tile was missing directly above me, and dripping down from the darkness above, through that open square, was blood. Thin, black-red blood splattering the floor in lazy drops. I ran for the front door, locked. I ran to the side door, bolted from the outside. Every exit was sealed, every window dark. My phone had no signal. The fryer turned on again. I don't know how else to explain what happened next. The lights all died, not flickered, died. The whole building plunged into total black. Then slowly, one by one, the emergency lights flicked on, bathing everything in a cold red hue, like the open late sign had melted and bled across the tiles. And then I saw her, standing behind the counter, where the register should have been. A woman in a tattered, grease-soaked KFC uniform, her skin a gray-yellow like old fryer oil. Her eyes were missing. Hollow sockets stared through me, and her jaw, dislocated, crooked, hung open wide, too wide. Chicken bones spilled from her mouth and clattered to the floor, forming a circle around her feet. She didn't move like a person. She twitched, jerkily, toward the fryer. Her arm snapped out at strange angles, one leg dragging. When she reached the fryer, she looked at me, even without eyes, and slowly lowered her hand into the boiling oil. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. I was screaming. I know I was. I could hear myself screaming, but my body wouldn't move. She pulled her hand out. Skin sloughed off. The bone hissed. She shoved it into her mouth. Crunch. That sound. I think that sound will be the last thing I hear before I die. The kitchen wall started peeling, not the paint, the wall itself. Like something behind it was pressing forward, warping it outward. A bloody hand burst through the drywall, followed by another, and then another. Dozens. They crawled out of the walls, cooks, cashiers, delivery boys, each one deformed, dripping in grease and blood. Hollow eyes, broken jaws, all of them wearing old KFC uniforms from different decades, 70s hats, 80s pins, 90s name tags. Some still held buckets. One of them came right up to me and shoved a box into my hands. It was a chicken bucket, still warm. I opened it. Inside was a heart, human, beating, slick with oil, and resting on top of it, A name tag. Mad Employee of the Month Deceased, 1987. I don't know how I got out. Maybe I never did. Sometimes I wake up and I'm back there, sweeping floors, wiping trays, hearing the fryer boil behind me even though I turned it off hours ago. They say that KFC was built on an old graveyard. I don't know if that's true. I don't think it matters. Some places don't care about the dead resting easy. Some places cook them in 11 herbs and spices. If you ever get a craving late at night, if you're on Route 17 and you see a glowing red sign promising hot wings and fresh biscuits, drive on. Because once you walk through those doors, you're part of the last bucket. Forever. My name is Jordan Myers. I used to be a shift supervisor at a KFC in rural Mississippi, just outside of a town called Ellisville. It was a tiny standalone building on the edge of a dying strip mall, tucked between an abandoned Family Dollar and a pharmacy that hadn't had power in 3 months. The sign above our store always buzzed like it was struggling to stay alive. We closed at midnight, but I always stayed till 2 or 3 a.m. for cleanup. The crew left early. Only I remained. At first, the silence felt peaceful. That changed quickly. It began subtly. The chicken would vanish from the warming trays. We'd prepare everything fresh before closing so I could toss it all out. But every now and then, I'd return to the kitchen and find the trays completely empty. Grease-smeared, crumbs scattered, like someone had eaten them in a hurry. No one had come in. No doors had opened. Then, the smell changed. You probably think a place like KFC always smells like oil, meat, and salt. But there's a familiar comfort to it. A warmth. This wasn't that. It was sour, like spoiled flesh that had been simmering in rancid oil for days. I thought it was the grease trap. So one night I decided to clean it myself. That was my first mistake. I opened the metal cover to the grease trap, a heavy lid tucked under the back sink, and a wave of heat slammed into my face. Not just warmth, heat, like someone had lit a fire down there. And the stench? It was unbearable. I gagged and nearly vomited. But what made me drop the lid in sheer panic were the fingernail scratches. Dozens, no, hundreds, of scratches along the inside of the metal pipe. Tiny crescent marks. Human, as if someone had been clawing from the inside. I didn't say anything to my manager, Clara. She wouldn't have believed me. Hell, I didn't believe me. That night I locked the back door, shut off the lights, and sat in the office to wait for the fryer to cool. I put in my earbuds, played some ambient music, and tried not to think about the scratches. Then I saw the security feed. We had an old split-screen monitor in the office that showed 4 cameras: front counter, drive-through, back sink, and freezer hallway. I glanced up, and on the screen for the back sink, I saw someone standing there, alone, still, facing the grease trap. My blood turned cold. I tore the earbuds out and stared. The person was barefoot, wearing a torn KFC apron. Their head hung low, face covered by long black hair. The apron was soaked, dripping. The puddle under their feet spread slowly across the tiles. I grabbed the door handle, ready to bolt, but the camera flickered, and suddenly the figure was gone. I rushed out with a mop handle clutched in my fist, heart pounding so hard it felt like a drum. The sink area was empty, except for one thing. The grease trap lid was open, and sitting beside it, perfectly balanced on a stainless steel tray, was a human molar. Brown, cracked, with bits of gum still attached. I quit the next day, but quitting didn't help. The nightmares followed me, always the same. I'm mopping under the sink and I feel something warm bubble up through the tiles. Grease, thick and black, starts seeping through the cracks, and hands, so many hands, push up from beneath, clawing, grasping. I wake up choking on the smell of burnt skin. 2 weeks later, Clara called me. She sounded strange, her voice hollow like she hadn't slept. "There's something wrong with the fryer, Jordan," she whispered. "I keep cleaning it, but it won't stop filling. Every night. I find more in it. More bones. Not chicken. Not anything I can recognize. Some of them are Too small. I told her to call corporate, shut the place down, burn it even. But she didn't. 2 nights later, I got the news. Clara had gone missing. Last seen at the KFC. Her car was still in the lot. Her purse, keys, phone, all there. But she was gone. The only thing out of place? A single, freshly fried human finger sitting in the warming tray. They found her name tag beside it, burned into the surface like it had fused with the steel. The franchise closed down. Official reason: mold contamination. But we all knew that was a lie. I heard whispers from other stores in the region. Things no one wanted to report. One store in Georgia found teeth in their mashed potatoes. Another in Arkansas swore their drive-through speakers started whispering in Latin at 3 a.m. But the worst part? The voice that started calling me. I changed my number, moved across the state, took a job at a grocery store. But the calls kept coming, late at night. Same number, unknown, no voicemail. When I finally picked up one time, I heard the unmistakable sizzle of oil. Then a voice, raspy, low, female, whispered, "They're still hungry." I don't sleep much anymore. My fridge broke last week, and when I opened the back, I found a KFC receipt tucked inside. The date on it, tomorrow's. I haven't eaten fried chicken in over a year. I don't go near red and white buildings. I cross the street when I see that colonel's face. You may laugh. You may think it's all in my head. But if you ever work the closing shift at a KFC and you hear something bubbling behind the walls, don't check the grease trap. Not all meat that fries belongs to animals. I was 18 when I got my first real job, night shift at a KFC in Decatur, Alabama. Not the new shiny one by the freeway. No, this place was ancient. Red tiles chipped, paint peeling from the walls. It smelled like grease and sadness. Nobody liked working nights there. Everyone who did either quit or started acting strange. I should have listened when Marcus, the guy I replaced, stared at me with dead eyes and muttered, "Don't look into the fryer too long." I thought it was a joke. The first week went fine. I cleaned, stocked, took out the trash. Sometimes the drive-through headset would pick up weird static or voices, but that's normal for old equipment. The building creaked too, like it was breathing. Still, nothing I couldn't handle. Then came the 12th night. It was past midnight. I was alone. Kitchen spotless, everything turned off. I was just about to clock out when I heard the fryer sizzle. That was strange. It had been off for over an hour. I walked back, expecting maybe a drip of water caused it to hiss. But when I got there, the fryer was on. The oil bubbled, popping loudly, the heat shimmering in the air above it. I stared at the controls. Everything was still switched off. Then I saw it. A face. In the oil. Boiling, skin peeling, eyes wide open, looking up at me from the bottom of the fryer. It didn't scream. It didn't move. It just stared. I stumbled back, slipped on a patch of grease, and hit the floor hard. When I looked again, the fryer was empty. Off. Cold. I didn't sleep that morning. The next night, I asked my supervisor, Greg, if anyone had ever reported weird stuff. He laughed. Then he got quiet. "You ever hear about Simone?" he asked. I hadn't. He told me Simone was a manager there years ago. She used to close by herself. One night she didn't go home. They found her 2 days later, her body folded inside the fryer. Bones soft like they'd been boiled. Skin completely gone. No sign of a break-in. No struggle. They said she must have slipped and fallen in, but Greg leaned in and whispered, "You ever try to fall into a fryer? Go ahead, try. See how small that opening is." After that, he wouldn't talk about it again. Things got worse fast. The freezer door started slamming by itself. I heard wet footsteps in the hallway when no one else was there. The drive-through bell rang at 3:12 a.m. every night, even though the system was disconnected. One night, I checked the monitor and saw a woman standing at the drive-through window. No car, no feet, just standing there. hair soaking wet hanging over her face. She was wearing a grease-stained KFC uniform, and when I blinked, she was gone. I started to dread the fryer. I wouldn't go near it. I cleaned everything else and left it for last. But on my last night, something made me go to it first. It was already bubbling when I arrived. I swear to God I hadn't turned it on. And this time the bubbles weren't clear. They were red. Something was cooking in there, and it wasn't chicken. I grabbed the long metal skimmer and dipped it into the oil. Pulled something up. A name tag. Melted, blackened, but I could still read it. Simone. I dropped it, backed away. The lights flickered violently, and I heard a loud crash from the dining area. When I turned, every single chair was upside down, stacked on the tables, perfectly balanced. And then the smell hit me. Not grease, burned hair, cooked flesh. It made my eyes water. The fryer hissed louder. I turned back and she was standing above it. Simone, skinless, boiled, bones showing through her arms, her head tilted sideways, jaw hanging by tendon, and her eyes, milky white, looked straight through me. She lifted a hand, pointed to the fryer, and said, "You're next." I ran. The front doors wouldn't budge. I pounded on the glass, screamed. Behind me, I heard her dragging something wet across the floor. I turned just enough to see her dragging a body, my body, toward the fryer. It wasn't possible, but it was me. Same clothes, same shoes, my name tag glinting in the red flickering lights. She lifted it, me, up. I heard bones snapping. Then she dropped it into the fryer. The scream that came from the oil still rings in my ears. It wasn't hers. It was mine. I woke up on the floor of the kitchen, cold, covered in grease. The fryer was off, empty, like nothing had happened. But my name tag? It was gone. I quit that night. Never went back. The store closed down a week later. But sometimes I still hear it. That bubbling, that scream. And when I pass any KFC, anywhere, I can smell it. That thick, burnt smell of death. And I swear, if you ever work the night shift and the fryer starts hissing on its own, don't look in, don't go near it, because Simone is still there, and she's always hungry. I don't know how to begin this without sounding insane, but I have to tell someone before I lose what's left of my mind. My name is Travis, and I used to work at a KFC in rural Virginia. It was one of those stores nobody talked about, built in 1979, never renovated, tucked between a rundown liquor store and a crumbling car wash. No drive-through, barely any customers after 10 p.m. It was my first real job. I was 19, hired to do the late shift cleanup, midnight to 3 a.m., 5 days a week. The money was terrible, but I needed it. I didn't know then what that building held, what it fed on. The first 2 nights were quiet. I'd mop the floors, scrape dried batter off the counters, shut down the fryers. Sometimes the lights would flicker, but the wiring was ancient, so I ignored it. I kept my earbuds in, music loud, and kept my head down. But on the 3rd night, I noticed something. The clock. It was stuck at 12:44 a.m. I checked my phone. It said 2:07 a.m. I tapped the clock on the wall. Nothing. I unplugged it and plugged it back in. Still 12:44. Whatever. I moved on. But from that night forward, things started getting wrong. It began with sounds. Footsteps in the hallway behind the kitchen. Wet, dragging steps like bare feet across grease-slicked tile. I thought maybe a coworker had stayed behind, but every time I checked, no one was there. Then came the voices. They started faint, muffled, like whispers from the walk-in freezer. But one night, as I was scrubbing the fry station, I heard a voice behind me say clearly, "He's not supposed to be here." I spun around, but no one was there. The fryer was bubbling, on its own. I hadn't turned it on. The oil hissed violently, spitting as if something had just been dropped into it. But the basket was empty. I turned it off, backed away. The hallway lights buzzed overhead, then cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the store. Then, the freezer door slammed. I ran to the front, heart hammering in my throat, and flipped the breakers. The lights flickered back on. The freezer door stood wide open. I approached slowly, every hair on my body standing on end. Inside, on the top shelf, lay a KFC bucket. It wasn't there before. I stepped in, my breath visible in the cold. I lifted the lid. Inside was a human tongue. Fresh, wet, still twitching. I dropped the bucket and ran out, slipping on the icy floor. I should have quit that night, but I didn't. Something about that place keeps you, holds you in, whispers to you when you sleep. You start to feel like you belong to it. The fifth night I arrived and found the lobby full of chairs overturned. The sign outside glowed brighter than I'd ever seen it. Too bright. Blood red. Humming like it was alive. There was a smell, something thick and metallic. Not grease, not chicken. Blood. As I stepped inside, the door shut behind me. Hard. The lock clicked on its own. I wasn't alone. I walked slowly to the back, holding a mop like a weapon. Everything was quiet. The fryer was off. The freezer closed. But something was different. The floor was wet. I looked down. Footprints. Bare. Human. Leading from the back hallway to the office door. I followed them. When I reached the office, the door creaked open before I touched it. The monitor, the one that showed all the camera feeds, was static, except one. Camera 7. The fryer. Someone stood over it. A woman, soaked in grease. Her skin was blistered, sagging, parts of it sliding off like overcooked meat. She turned slowly, her head jerking like a broken puppet, and looked into the camera. Her eyes were missing, just black sockets that dripped oil. Then she smiled. It wasn't human. Her mouth stretched ear to ear, too wide, filled with jagged bits of bone and something moving inside. Then she lifted a name tag and held it up to the camera. Travis. My name. I ran. But the hallway was gone. I swear, where the hallway used to be, there was just an endless corridor of fryers, bubbling endlessly, stretching into pitch blackness. I turned to run back through the office, but the walls were melting, dripping like fryer oil, hot and hissing. The woman appeared at the end of the fryer corridor, dragging herself forward. Her mouth opened, and I heard a sound I'll never forget. Children, screaming. Hundreds of voices, layered over each other, howling in pain, trapped in her throat. I screamed, fell to the floor, crawled into the janitor's closet and slammed the door. I stayed there for hours, maybe days. Time didn't exist anymore. When I finally opened the door, it was morning. Sunlight streamed through the lobby. Everything was clean, perfect. No grease, no blood, no smell. The clock on the wall? 12:44 a.m. I walked out without a word. I never went back. I changed numbers, moved to another state, got a job at a bookstore. I don't talk about that place. I don't eat fried chicken. I unplug my microwave every night. But I can't escape it. Every night I wake up at 12:44 a.m. to the smell of hot oil and burnt flesh. And sometimes in the silence I hear her whisper from the dark, "You were never supposed to leave." And I know, someday soon, I won't.